What it do, bruh? Talk of the town, Nintendo, Doc Trey, still holding it down, still make the best games, and you know this, bro. It's the truth. If you don't like it, you can have that seatbelt.
All right, welcome back. We are still on the road to 20,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So if you're interested in Switch 2 information and getting accurate Nintendo Switch 2 information before a lot of other people, and you're not subscribed, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And if you like the video, and let me know what you think about the topic in the comments section. So today we are talking about the controversial game key cards on select Nintendo Switch 2 games. And I'm seeing a lot of negativity towards this, and which I agree. You guys know that I'm a stickler for physical media. I always rather have the physical version of a game unless it is like dramatically cheaper, but even then I still like having the physical version of games, of movies. I mean, I own movies and TV shows on physical media that I have access to on streaming services that I have, just because I just like having the physical version of games and movies, period. So the game key card thing is not something that I am a fan of. However, I'm seeing a lot of people putting this blame on Nintendo and bashing Nintendo for this practice. And the crazy part is, if you actually look at the games, none of Nintendo games are game key cards. None of them. This is specifically a third-party thing. And the reason for that is because, one, this is something that was aimed at third parties. And also, it might have actually been their idea. So this kind of reminds me of a similar situation that we faced in the beginning of the original Nintendo Switch's life. And people were complaining that they had to buy SD cards for the Switch. Complaining. And I made a video showing you guys that, this was pretty much, you pretty much have no choice. Like, it's either you buy these SD cards or you're not going to get these games. That was pretty much the situation there. It was a necessary evil. And I think that these game key cards are the same. So yeah, everybody was complaining, oh my gosh, I can't believe Nintendo didn't put enough memory. I gotta buy an SD card. Fast forward to today, and Switch 2 compatible SD cards that are even more expensive are selling out. Interesting. It's funny how times change. But with these game key cards, it's obvious that a lot of these games might not have even come to the Switch 2 without these key cards. So we have a good example here of The Witcher. Same development team, Cyberpunk is coming to the Switch 2, and the whole game is full on the cart. It's a 64 gig cart, and the game will be $70. And that's incredible. But what people are not understanding is that is just them going above and beyond, just like they did with The Witcher 3 on the Switch. One of the only probably 3 games on the entire Switch's life that use a 32 gig cart. But guess what? That game is still full price. And that's the reason, because the cart cost a lot of money. What were the other games that used that cart? Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. How much was that? $70. What was the other game? Another third-party game. Mortal Kombat 1 on the Switch. 32 gig cart, $70. So it's obvious that these carts are pretty expensive. So much so that during the beginning of the Switch's life, the reason why a lot of these third parties use these small carts and had large downloads for these games is because the 4 to 8 gig version of these carts for the Switch at launch were the only ones that were equivalent to the same cost as that on the disc. So anything higher than that ate into their revenue. So either they got a small cart or they used a bigger cart, a more expensive cart, and charged Nintendo Switch tax. And you guys remember that? Remember when some Switch games were $10 more than the other versions? That's the reason. So these game keys are a way kind of to answer that, and also to answer those code in the box games. You guys remember those code in the box games for the original Switch, where it was literally just a code, downloadable code, and a ugly box? Yeah, this version is kind of an updated version of that, except it's a digital version or digital locked version that not only can you play on multiple systems, it's not tied to your account, and you're able to resell it. And that's the big difference. But with these game keys, these are obviously aimed at third parties. And the reason why a lot of these third parties are probably going this route is because regardless of the size, unless they're going to use a 64 gig cart, which I told you is probably pretty expensive, they're not going to be able to fit the whole game on these regular size carts anyway without dramatically sacrificing the quality. Now, that's what a lot of people don't understand about these game carts. So because of the Switch's and the Switch 2's hybrid nature, they had to use these carts. But the carts that hold a lot of information are still very expensive. And even the ones that are very expensive still hold a significantly smaller amount of data than these discs do. So a lot of these games, even if they go with a 64 gig cart, it still might not even fit the whole game. And then they still have to pay this large cost. Now, a Switch game and a Switch 2 game, because of the difference in horsepower and the difference in the assets, yes, a Switch 2 game is not going to have to use as much data as a competing platform such as a PlayStation 5 or something like that. Yes, so automatically the Switch 2 file should be smaller. But when you make it too small, then that actually starts to sacrifice quality. Now, let me give you an example. So Cyberpunk 77 is on the Switch 2. The full game's on the cart. It's 64 gigs. If that was a game that was on a, say, 100 gig cart, it's going to look better. It's going to sound better. Because it's going to have to be compressed even less. Now, make no mistake. Cyberpunk 77 is going to be fully playable on the cart on Switch 2. But I guarantee you, there will probably be a rather big, day one patch or around that time that's pretty significant that makes the game perform and look even better. And the reason for that is because the more space you have available, the better the games can look and perform. If the Switch 2's carts held 200 gigs, every single game shown would look and play better, period, because they would have to compress these assets or they wouldn't have to make concessions. That's the thing. That's the stickler about games being on the cart. They have to sacrifice somewhere. And it's usually in the visuals or the sound or something like that. The bigger the game is, the bigger the file size, the more they can do with it. And these third-party games, I'm pretty sure that a lot of these games, maybe they wouldn't even come to the Switch without this game keycard idea, because a lot of these games are going to be big. So we have, for instance, Street Fighter 6 on the Switch 2. It's the year 1 to 2 Fighters Edition, right? It's on a game keycard, and it says full 50 gigabyte full game download via the internet required, right? So this is a 50 gig plus game. So they would have had to use a 64 gig cart for Street Fighter. But it looks like instead of doing that, they decided to go the game key card route, but also not charge full price. So Cyberpunk on the Switch 2 is a $70 game. Street Fighter 6 is a $60 game on Switch 2. So they decided to price the game cheaper than most third-party games will be on Switch, but also make it a game keycard title. Yeah, this is one of those cases where, unfortunately, I think this is kind of like a necessary evil. Like if they announce GTA for the Switch, like say if they announce GTA 6 for the Switch, like this, unless Nintendo just gave them this unless they just found some really good deal on 64 gig carts, or if Rockstar was just feeling I don't know, feeling like they want to get back to Nintendo fans, I can almost guarantee you that if GTA 6 comes to the Switch 2, it's probably going to be a game key card also. Because the game is more than likely going to be bigger than 64 gigs anyway. So, unfortunately, this seems to be one of those things that's like, okay, you want the game's graphics and visuals to match up as closely as possible to the competition. Unfortunately, this is maybe the necessary evil. The reason why these games don't use game key cards on Nintendo games is because Nintendo games are historically small comparatively in their size, in terms of file size. And that's that's pretty much what that is. So yeah, looks like it's a necessary evil. Looks like if you want all these games, this is something that you're probably going to have to deal with, unfortunately. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section.